Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is Sunday, April 28th of 2024. I just got back from the donut shop. Donuts. Okay, I'll wait a second to eat them. It rained yesterday, last night. We lost power for, I don't know, an hour or so. So we had no we had nothing, no television, no internet. I do have a Chrome notebook here. No, laptop, Chrome laptop. I don't like it. I don't know, it's not bad, but I don't like it. One thing, there's not much memory with it. And if somebody was using it probably the way they should use it, for what they should use it, that would be probably okay. But if I'm trying to, make YouTube videos and that type of stuff and upload them and work with them and whatever, so it just sits here, not being, not even plugged in. I plug it in occasionally. But that's about it. I went to even though today I didn't make it to the mailbox yesterday. I've mentioned here that Fort Worth has, and I'm sure other places have, transportation services for people that are disabled, handicapped, or old, or whatever you are. And I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever that I had to go to the doctor and have the doctor, fill it out. And anyway, I've got another, I've got till the end of May or something. Yeah, this is April. And I have to take it and have. Now, the doctor the place I go to, there's 2 doctors and 2, I'm not sure exactly what, nurse practitioners or who can do doctor stuff, Anyway, the doctor who, owns this place, he's a real prick and an asshole. And I found that out. I knew that immediately. And no reason to go through what, why, but he is. And then I was in better shape then than I am now. But when I went to him to begin with, well, that's how I started, They set me up. Then as soon as I found out after a time or two with him that he's a prick, then I switched over to the doctor practitioner. I don't think that's what they call them. But anyway, I had one for several years. She was great. And then she moved, because of her family and that kind of stuff, and closer or whatever. So they had another female doctor practitioner, and she's great. And so finally, when I got where I really needed, this thing, I took it into her, and she just took care of it right away. There was a little more to it than I thought there was when I looked at the thing that the doctor has to fill out. There's actually more to it than I realized. It's like, how far can the person, the doctor has to write in how far, how long can the person stand, there's not much, but it's very, in there. So anyway, I definitely qualify. So I'll have to take that. I have an appointment anyway, I think. Say May 23rd. Okay, I think that's with my doctor practitioner. Let's see. Oh, this says, let's see. Oh, that's April. Wait a minute. No, this is April. January, February, March, April. Okay, that one's been changed. And I forget why, my fault. So and it's I've the schedule someplace. I'll find it and put it in. I'm moving. Well, I'm not moving the board because I have two of them. The whiteboard, I have two of those, and I put stuff on there. You know, it's kind of a pain in the butt. I can see great. You know, edited. I mean, my eyes have been, you know, fixed, and I can see great now. Wow, and I can see when I'm outside. You know, block or two away, and I can see, you know, stuff, license tags and all kind of stuff. So that's great. But the problem is near vision, and I really need these glasses. Now this is, I mean, I can look at myself on the screen here, see what you're seeing, and I can see the time underneath, which I'm sure you can't see, and whatever, but man, I hate cell phones too, because I have hearing loss. I have hearing loss, bad hearing loss, you know, and that happened when I was, must have happened during the first grade, because they, of course, they went to Catholic school, so they didn't have any money, no school bus. If they needed a school bus with them, you know, they had to rent one. And also, I don't know how they came up with getting, you know, funding for having somebody come and do the, you know, the hearing test. But when my hearing test in the second grade was not good, and then I flunked the second grade, and a year later, since I was already in the second grade again, they didn't know that I, you know, that. So I got my hearing test again. Of course, we all sat at a table. You know, the classroom, or maybe half of the classroom, one at a time. And there was a cute second grade girl, you know, sitting next to, you know, I have never in my life lied on any kind of a test. You know, not when I went, you know, not when I went to high school. De La Salle Military Academy, all male. I've mentioned this before, and the older I get, the more I mention the fact that, man, if I'd have just known that the Army wasn't going to take me after going to military high school, an all-male military high school, I'd have gone to Catholic, you know, Catholic high school with girls. Man. But live and learn. So anyway, yeah, I failed the second grade. Yeah, and then for graduating from grade school, I didn't even know they had summer school. I mean, there was, or am I not supposed to say retarded? Real nice young guy, and he had disabilities of some kind, real nice guy. But he, and I don't think they sent him to summer school. In fact, I'm the only one that I know that went to summer school from grade school, you know, at St. Vincent's. And when I got there, I mentioned this before, when I got there, there was very few in the class, and some of them, it was high school, but it was, you know, they were doing it, make extra money, I'm sure. And the nun, you know, she said, you know, the reason you're here, I didn't actually know the reason that I was there. I mean, if I'd have thought about it, I could have figured it out. But she says, the reason you're here is because you cannot spell. She's talking to the class. And the reason you can't spell is because you don't read. If you read, you'll be able to spell. And so we're going to be reading. And then they did testing on and they did a good, or the nun, you know, actually did a good job, because what they did is there was a test after each thing we read. And they it tested you to see what you understood and what you could, you know, like, I forget what the names of the books we were reading, you know, but, you know, did you see that there were, problems with the book, or that, it what the story wasn't true, or stuff like that. And man, I zipped that. I mean, wow, I never had a trouble with that. And then in my anyway, back to the O'Hara High School for summer. The nun said, the reason you can't spell is because you don't read. And I read everything, not the school books. Well, school books, I'd flip through the pages, not reading them. Then I would read something that was interesting to me, or I thought was interesting, and that would be it. Never opened the books after that. Same thing in high school. Of course, in high school, summer school, 4 years in a row for me. But I'm sure that my reading level was probably, I bet you, higher than that nun's. I could be wrong. But, I never had any problem with reading. Spelling, yes, because of my hearing. Hearing loss, which it was pretty profound and still is. In fact, it gets worse with time. Anyway, I performed that little test or whatever here, and if I try to upload a video, it doesn't go to my site. Now, when I've been trying to, do this, well, there's a couple of sites that have been created because YouTube thinks I'm new or whatever, and I can upload to one of those. Maybe the others, to one of those I can upload. I'll try to remember to put the link to that. Not that it's interesting right now. The one that, well, this is probably the one you're seeing that on, by the way, because I can't upload to that. But nobody knows it's there. I'm laughing and crying inside at the same time. I've covered all this. If you're wondering why I couldn't get into the Army and all that kind of, I'll try to put the link below for this, so you can go to where I have 4,000 subscribers and over 2,000 videos. This is going to appear where I have 4 or 5 videos and 0 subscribers and just about 0 readers, So I'm not sure, I'm not going to take the one down that has that. I'd like to get access to it, and I don't know if that'll ever happen. But I can't go to TikTok. My oldest daughter, she's doing great with TikTok. I think she's only been on it for like 2 years, and she's, well, I shouldn't tell how much she's making, but she's doing really well with it, and she's doing fantastic with it. But TikTok is out, but I think you're limited to 20 minutes. It takes me 20 minutes to tell you what my name is and what the date is or something. That's not going to work. I'm not interested in Facebook. I wish I had my WordPress site back, because that did really well. That was neat. I've talked about this before on the WordPress site. I would just do like what I'm doing now, talking, for years, talking about what was going on. That I was married, that she wanted a divorce, that she eventually got a divorce, that I was I was having my director of security at the hospital I worked at for 5 or 6 years. he was racist, and I did 4 or 5 grievances against him, and I won them all. And I didn't know what was wrong with him. It's going to sound funny. I'm not going to say this because I've said it before. Okay. I'm going to say it again. I can't help it. I wondered what was wrong with him, but he was really smart. And man, you know, the merit reviews that he gave me, wow, they were great. And then too, the fact that he promoted me and wanted to promote me further, and then there at the last one, I couldn't fucking stand him anymore. I mean, hearing his voice on the radio just made me, once I was up in the office, shift change time. The other shift was coming on, and our shift was ready to going off, and he got on the radio, the director of security got on the radio. I forget what it was, probably something like, attention all units, you know. There are reports that there may be a storm moving into the Kansas City area. Be prepared for that. And I was the director of security had an office, the lieutenant and the secretary had an office, and then security officers, we had an area. And I told the guys, turn your radios off, turn your radios, and they're looking at me like, you know. And then I just reached over and turned their radios off, because else I'd have probably gone back and killed the director of security or something. God help us. But you know what I found out? This is going to sound really strange, and if I were you, I would question, you know, Jim Howard. What do you mean, you know? Anyway, this director of security was retired U.S. Army, disability. He was really smart, but then he did everything wrong, and he did everything stupid. And I was telling him, you know, nope, wrong, you know, and I would have to do a grievance, you know, and he would lose every time because he was wrong. The personnel department, or human resources or whatever, they requested of him that, well, one, they didn't want the director of security doing the interviews for the new people. And like I said, he was smart. But, and then they wanted me, you know, and of course he agreed, you know, so I did the interviews. And he told me, you know, you hire, you know, but I always, he was smart, but that was a stupid thing. He was a director, you know. So I'd go back and say, you know, here's this, I just interviewed him, and blah, 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 you know, everything. And now this one guy had been a firefighter for 5 years, or I forget how long, a long time. I mean, you know, and then he was a police officer, and then, I don't know, maybe he got into trouble or something, you know, but then he was director of security at Crown Center in downtown Kansas City, big fancy, you know, fancy thing, apartment, hotel, you know, hotel thing. Now, I'm not sure if he was, as director of security, if he was in charge of the hotel part, or if he was, I remember now, but so anyway, I interviewed him, and I said, okay, let's say his name was John, I forget what it was. I said, John, you know, hey, you'll be starting in, and none of us have the experience that you have, and you're going to be, you know, and I said, okay, and, you know, we talked. I explained everything to him, you know, and I went back and told the director of security, you know, here's this guy's, you know, whatever. And he said, nope, not hiring him. He's overqualified. And I said, Mr. Ross, we shouldn't turn somebody down because they're overqualified. And and then I explained, you know, and he said, okay. And then he said, okay, so, hire him. So I hired him. Oh my God. Yeah, it didn't take very long. He had his eyes set on, I guess, being a director of security at the hospital maybe. But he was also, you know, do this and this is, that kind of stuff. And, Mr. Ross was right on that, on that guy. But, okay, okay, here's the crazy part. I was working for this guy, and it was difficult, but it was all set up. Because I told him, I got where I refused to wear my sergeant's insignia, I just did, but I still did the job. I had to do the job, and I did it well. But oh, and so finally I told him, I told the director of security, I said, Mr. Ross, I thank you for the merit reviews you've given me. They are fantastic. Thank you. And I said, I've enjoyed working here. I actually enjoyed kind of working there because he let me do things that needed to be done. And the ideas were mine, I could go through a whole list of things that the hospital had been doing for a long time, and they weren't, Well, I mentioned this too in one of my videos. I mentioned about the hospital was on fire, and it was a real fire on the second floor. And the director of security, Mr. Ross, was in his office, and the lady who was the director of volunteers, and hospitals love volunteers. It saves them a lot of money, and you better not mess with the volunteers, And I mean, like security. At every place I worked, we had to save X number of spots for the volunteers, the gray-haired ladies that came in, and sometimes I would rather park over there, whatever. We had this situation, and you better not cross those blue-haired ladies or whatever, because the hospital would not like that. But so anyway, she called him, the lady in charge of the volunteers. She was down at the gift shop, third floor. And she called and said, I smell smoke. Now, he had a walkie-talkie right there. And he had 3 or 4 security officers, right then working, including me. And I was in charge of 6 or 7 parking lot attendants were, out there. And he goes down to take care of this himself. And he gets down there, and there's smoke coming up out there. Their flower machine was out in the hall, and there's, I guess, smoke coming up from underneath it. Well, also as a security officer, security officer, but as a supervisor, I knew what type of units, were going to come and where they were going to come. I mean, the fire department, they know what they're doing, and unless it's a volunteer fire department in some small town, and I think 80% of firefighters in the United States, because of the rural areas or whatever, are volunteers. So I'm not saying anything bad about them. I even went through the training. But I talked about that. I mean, I knew how long it would take when we turned in a fire alarm or whatever it was before the fire department would be there. I knew whether it would be a pumper or hook and ladder or where they would be stationed and the whole thing. So right away so he's up there in the 3rd floor, and this maintenance guy and I were walking down the hall, and I said, I smell smoke we're on the 2nd floor, and he says, I smell smoke too. I unlocked the door on this side, and he unlocked the door on the other side. I had a key to everything, but he unlocked the one on the other side. That was plant operations maintenance guy's area. It was actually the telephone equipment room. And he opened the door, and out the smoke came, and there was fire, whatever, and he grabbed a fire extinguisher. I couldn't grab a fire extinguisher because I was right there, and he got the fire. But I immediately took the radio and called, the dispatcher or the operator. Emergency Dr. Red, telephone equipment room, second floor. Emergency Dr. Red, telephone equipment, second floor, emergency. And then she paged immediately, beep, beep, or whatever it was, emergency Dr. Red, telephone equipment room, second floor. And then I, of course, pulled the alarm. Now, of course, the fire thing had already gone in, it's because the building was alarmed. In fact, I was in charge of the fire alarm system. But I pulled the alarm. That set the alarm off and closed all fire doors in the hospital. And it also shut down all air handling units so that smoke didn't wasn't going to be taken out and go into the air handling system and go over to the unit that was next door to the telephone equipment room, the ICU, stuff like that. So, anyway, so Mr. Ross said, "No, Jim, the fire's on the third floor." I don't think he said third floor. I think he said, the flower box up here. And I said, "No, it's on the second floor, Mr. Ross. Heavy smoke and fire here." And he comes, "No, Jim." Well, then that's when I called outside and asked the parking lot attendants, do you have firemen and equipment out there?" "Yes, Jim." I said, "Bring them in through the dock on the second floor and come over right next to ICU. That's where the telephone equipment room is." And so he brought him in. So Mr. Ross was smart, but he had these things. Racism, and stuff. But I mean, man, I got such great... Anyway, he set it up when I told him, I really can't stand you anymore, Mr. Ross. I got to move on. And he said, "What about changing to a different department here?" And I said, "No, I'm going to move on." And he said, "Is there something that you're interested in?" and whatever. And I said, "Well, radio and electronics, I've always been, but I didn't go to electronic technician school. Actually, back then it wasn't radio technician school or whatever. It was radio and television repair." Those people then became, techs and whatever. But, so they had a biomed department that they had just set up. In fact, Mr. Ross had talked them into it. And so he sort of quasi, he knew better than to tell the biomed techs that they didn't need to check the electrical plug, or he knew that he could figure that much out. Anyway, fast forward to Donald Trump's time, and Donald Trump is, I'm sorry if you're one of his supporters, but just about the most stupid person I've run across, that we've run across. And then when the news was happening and when there was stories on TV where, well, I know from psychiatrists and other people, well, I've never personally, done an exam of Donald Trump, but he is, and then they say, stupidest man, or, well, they probably didn't say that, but, and then I realized these guys, the director of security that I worked for, Donald Trump, the same, except, So I've been talking for 30 minutes, and this is going to get uploaded to some place where you'll never see it. I'll try to get into my regular site and put a link to... see, I can't even upload this. Now, I can log in over there and leave a comment like I'm somebody else, leave a comment like you guys do, But right now I don't have the security level over there. Maybe I can eventually figure out, because when my computer crashed, I lost a bunch of information, a bunch of stuff. And that was carelessness on my part. Because I'd never really had, you know, and then you get really complacent and lazy. I don't think lazy has anything to do with it, but yeah. So I mentioned in a previous video that if you're seeing this, you probably that I didn't know what I was going to do. If you come up with something, not TikTok, I just can't do anything in 20 minutes. I wish I could get the WordPress site back up, but over the time that when I started, we know it was great. Man, that was great. I've talked about that. I could, if something came up and I put it on my WordPress site, there still are, I'm sure, but I'm not seeing any benefits from it at all. But where the companies have X number of people, I don't know, 30, 50, 100, who are sitting there monitoring the internet, and if somebody says something on there about their company or something, they were coming back to me, they were coming to me and saying, Jim, we saw your post on such, on your thing, and we'll take care of that for you. That was something. It was like being a celebrity. Yeah. And I could go through a whole list. In fact, well, okay, my other videos, probably there is a whole list. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm going to have my donut now. Donuts, 2. And I just eating 2 today. That's